Jiwon wiped the sweat from his forehead as he arranged the last few items on his small table. The marketplace on Nexus Station was always busy, but today felt different. Ships from all over the galaxy had docked here in the past few days. The air buzzed with strange languages and the smell of exotic foods. His little booth looked plain compared to the others around him. While his neighbors sold glowing crystals that could power entire cities or metals that could bend without breaking, Jiwon had simple things from Earth: wooden bowls carved by hand, soft blankets woven from sheep wool, and small metal figures that children might play with. Many aliens walked past his table without stopping. They looked at his items with curious eyes but rarely bought anything. Most days, Jiwon barely made enough money to pay for his small room on the station, but he did not mind. These simple Earth items reminded him of home, and more importantly, they reminded him of Hana. His wife had died 2 years ago, but Jiwon still felt her presence when he touched the things she had made. The wooden spoons she had carved, the clay pots she had shaped with her gentle hands, and most precious of all, the silver ring on his finger that she had given him just before she passed away. The morning crowd was starting to thin when Jiwon noticed an old alien woman walking slowly toward his booth. She was unlike any species he had seen before. Her skin looked like it was made of crystal, shifting from pale blue to silver as she moved. She walked carefully, using a staff that seemed to be carved from some kind of glowing stone. The woman stopped at his table and looked at his items with great interest. Her crystal skin began to glow slightly as she picked up a small wooden bird that Hana had carved years ago. "This is beautiful work," the woman said in careful but clear standard Galactic. Her voice was soft and reminded Jiwon of wind chimes. "Your people make these with their hands?" "Yes," Jiwon replied with a smile. "My wife made that one. She loved to carve birds because she said they represented freedom." The woman's skin changed to a warm golden color. "Your wife was an artist?" "She was many things," Jiwon said, his voice growing quiet. "She could work with any material: wood, clay, metal, stone. She had a gift for understanding what each piece wanted to become." The woman carefully placed the wooden bird back on the table and continued looking at his other items. She examined each piece closely, sometimes closing her eyes as if she was feeling something Jiwon could not see. Other shoppers moved around them, but the woman took her time. She asked questions about different items, how they were made, what materials were used, why humans chose to make things by hand when machines could do it faster. Jiwon found himself enjoying the conversation. Most customers either bought something quickly or left without saying much. This woman seemed genuinely interested in understanding human craftsmanship. As they talked, Jiwon noticed the woman's eyes kept drifting to his hands. At first, he thought she was looking at a small scar he had gotten from working with metal. But then he realized her gaze was fixed on his wedding ring. The ring was simple, a band of silver with a small stone set into it. The stone was not a gem that most people would recognize. It was rough around the edges and had an unusual way of catching light. Hana had found it at a salvage market on Earth, claiming it was the most interesting stone she had ever seen. "That ring," the woman said suddenly, her voice barely a whisper. Her crystal skin began to change colors rapidly, first to deep purple, then to bright orange, then back to silver. "Where did you get that ring?" Jiwon looked down at his hand, confused by her reaction. "My wife made it for me." "Why do you ask?" The woman's staff slipped from her hand and clattered to the floor. Several other shoppers turned to look, but the woman did not seem to notice. Her skin was now cycling through colors so quickly that it looked like a rainbow was trapped beneath the surface. "Your wife made this?" the woman asked, her voice shaking. "She worked the stone herself." "Yes," Jiwon said, growing concerned. "Are you feeling well? Would you like to sit down?" The woman did not answer. Instead, she continued to stare at his ring with wide eyes. Her breathing had become fast and shallow. A small crowd began to gather around them. A tall, thin alien with green skin stepped forward. "Is there a problem here?" he asked. The crystal woman finally seemed to notice the attention she was drawing. She took several deep breaths and her skin slowly settled into a pale blue color. "I am sorry," she said to Jiwon. "I did not mean to cause a scene, but that stone in your ring, may I ask where your wife found it?" Jiwon was still confused but answered honestly. She bought it from a dealer who sold old materials from salvaged ships. She said it was unlike anything she had ever worked with. It seemed to guide her hands as she shaped it. The woman's skin flashed bright gold for just a moment before returning to blue. "What is your name, young human?" she asked. Jiwan, he replied. And yours? I am called Mirai, the woman said. She bent down slowly to pick up her staff. Jiwan, that stone in your ring is not from your world. I know, Jiwan said. Hana always said it felt like it came from somewhere far away. But lots of strange materials end up in salvage markets. Miri's skin began to glow again. This stone, it is very special. More special than you know. The crowd around them had grown larger. Jiwan could see aliens of many different species watching with interest. Some were taking pictures with small devices. What do you mean? Jiwan asked. Mirai looked around at all the watching faces, then back at Jiwan. This is not the right place for such a conversation. There is much I must tell you about that ring, but it is a long story. Would you be willing to close your shop early today? Jiwan looked at his table full of unsold items, then at the strange woman who seemed to know something important about his most precious possession. All right, he said. But first, can you tell me why that stone made you so upset? Mirai was quiet for a long moment. When she finally spoke, her voice was so soft that Jiwan had to lean closer to hear her. Because I helped create it long before your wife was born. Long before humans even knew that other worlds existed. Jiwan stared at Mirai, trying to understand what she had just said. The crowd around them whispered in different languages, but their voices seemed to come from far away. You helped create this stone? Jiwan asked, holding up his hand to show the ring. That's impossible. This ring is only a few years old. Mirai's crystal skin shifted to a deep, sad blue color. The ring is young, yes. But the stone is much, much older. She looked around at all the watching faces and sighed. Come with me, Jiwan. There is a quiet place where we can talk without so many listeners. Jiwan quickly packed his items into boxes and followed Mirai through the busy marketplace. She moved slowly but seemed to know exactly where she was going. They walked past shops, selling glowing foods, past booths with clothes that changed colors, and past areas where the air itself seemed to sparkle with energy. Finally, they reached a small cafe in a quieter part of the station. The owner was a friendly alien with fur like a cat, who brought them drinks without being asked. Mirai chose a table in the corner, away from other customers. Now, she said, settling into her chair with a soft grunt, tell me everything about how your wife found this stone and what she did with it. Jiwan touched the ring on his finger, remembering. Hana loved to visit salvage markets. She said you could find amazing materials there, things from all over the galaxy that ended up on Earth by accident. Most of it was junk, but sometimes she would find something special. He paused to take a sip of his drink, which tasted like flowers and starlight. She found this stone about 3 years ago. The dealer said it came from a ship that had crashed on Earth's moon decades earlier. He was selling it cheap because no one knew what it was. Mirai leaned forward, her skin glowing slightly. What did your wife do when she first saw it? She said it called to her. Jiwan continued. I thought she was being poetic, but she insisted the stone was special. She bought it immediately and brought it home to study. And then she did something I had never seen her do before. Usually when Hana worked with a new material, she would test it carefully. She would make small cuts to see how hard it was, check how it reacted to heat, try different tools on small pieces. Jiwan's voice grew soft with memory. But with this stone, she seemed to know exactly what to do. She worked on it for weeks, but she never seemed frustrated or confused. Her hands moved like she had been working with this type of stone her whole life. Mirai's skin had turned a bright golden color. She cut it herself, shaped it, polished it. Every bit of it. And the strangest thing was, she said the stone seemed to tell her what it wanted to become. She would sit with it for hours, just holding it, before making a single cut. What tools did she use? Jiwan thought for a moment. Simple ones. Hand files, polishing cloths, small chisels. She said power tools felt wrong with this stone. Everything had to be done slowly and carefully. Mirai was quiet for a long time, staring at the ring on Jiwan's finger. Her skin continued to shift colors. Gold, silver, blue, then back to gold. Jiwan, she said finally, I need to tell you something that may be hard to believe. After everything that's happened today, I think I'm ready for anything. Mirai smiled sadly. I am not just any crystal person, as your people might call my species. We are called the Kalari, and was, the High Keeper of the sacred stones on my home world. She paused, watching his face for reaction. That stone in your ring, it is called Heartstone. It comes only from the very center of my world, where the planet's core meets layers of crystal that have grown for millions of years. Jiwon looked down at his ring with new eyes. The small, rough stone suddenly seemed much more important. Heartstone is the most precious material in our culture, Mirai continued. It is said to hold memories, emotions, and the essence of life itself. Only the most skilled Kalari artisans are allowed to work with it, and even then, only after decades of training. But Hana worked with it easily, Jiwon said, confused. Exactly. Mirai's skin flashed bright orange with excitement. And that should have been impossible. She leaned closer to him across the table. Heartstone cannot be cut by machines or power tools. It can only be shaped by hands guided by deep emotional connection. Most Kalari spend their entire lives learning to understand just one small piece. Jiwon felt his head spinning. You're saying this stone is some kind of sacred relic? More than that, Mirai said, her voice dropping to a whisper. 300 years ago, a large piece of Heartstone was stolen from our most holy temple. It was broken into fragments and scattered across the galaxy. We thought it was lost forever. She pointed at his ring. That stone, Jiwon, is a piece of what was taken from us. But how could Hana have known how to work with it? Mirai's skin glowed with warm golden light. That is what makes this so amazing. Your wife had no training, no knowledge of our ways, no understanding of what Heartstone even was. Yet she worked with it perfectly. She held out her hand. May I? May I hold the ring for just a moment? I promise I will give it back. Jiwon hesitated. He had not taken the ring off since Hana had placed it on his finger just before she died. But something in Mirai's expression made him trust her. Slowly, he slid the ring off his finger and placed it in her crystal palm. The moment the ring touched her skin, Mirai gasped. Her entire body began to glow with shifting rainbow colors. Tears that looked like liquid crystal began to flow down her cheeks. Oh, she whispered. Oh, Jiwon, I can feel her. Feel who? Your wife. Her love for you. Her hopes. Her final wishes. They are all here in the stone. Mirai's voice was filled with wonder. She put her very soul into this ring. Jiwon felt his own eyes beginning to water. She said she wanted to give me something that would keep our love alive even after she was gone. Mirai carefully placed the ring back in his palm. She succeeded beyond anything she could have imagined. Jiwon slipped the ring back onto his finger, his hands shaking slightly. The simple silver band felt different now, heavier somehow, as if it carried the weight of centuries. I don't understand, he said, looking across the table at Mirai. If this stone is so sacred to your people, and if it was stolen, shouldn't I return it to you? Mirai's crystal skin shifted to a soft purple color that Jiwon was beginning to recognize as her way of showing deep thought. That is complicated, she said slowly. The stone was stolen, yes. But what your wife did with it, that changes everything. She picked up her drink with both hands as if she needed the warmth. Let me tell you more about Heartstone so you can understand why your ring is so special. Jiwon nodded, settling back in his chair. Around them, the cafe buzzed quietly with other conversations in languages he did not recognize. Heartstone forms deep in the core of my world, Mirai began. It takes thousands of years to grow even a small piece. The crystal absorbs emotions, memories, and what you might call the life force of everything around it. She paused to take a sip. When we work with Heartstone, we must be in perfect harmony with it. We spend years learning to quiet our minds, to focus our hearts, to understand what the stone wants to become. Even then, most attempts fail. What happens when attempts fail? The stone becomes cloudy and dull. It loses its ability to hold emotions or memories. It becomes just ordinary crystal. Jiwon looked down at his ring. Even in the soft light of the cafe, the stone seemed to glow with its own inner fire. But your wife, Mirai continued, her skin glowing brighter, somehow knew exactly what to do. The way she cut it, the angles she chose, the final polish, it follows patterns that take our master artisans decades to learn. Maybe she was just lucky. Mirai shook her head. and small sparkles of light seemed to dance in her crystal hair. Luck cannot explain this. Look at your ring carefully, G1. Really look at it. G1 held up his hand and studied the ring in the light. He had looked at it thousands of times before, but now he tried to see it through new eyes. The stone was not perfectly round or square like most cut gems. Instead, it had 7 sides, each one catching light in a different way. The surface was smooth but not mirror bright. It seemed to hold light inside it like a small captured star. The 7-sided cut, Mireille whispered. That is the most sacred pattern in our culture. It represents the 7 emotions that we believe make up all of life. Love, hope, sorrow, joy, fear, anger, and peace. She pointed to different facets of the stone.
See how each side reflects light differently?
That is not accident. Each facet must be cut to exact angles to achieve this effect. The slightest mistake would ruin the entire stone. G1 stared at the ring with growing amazement. Hana did all this by instinct? More than instinct. She had a connection to the stone that I have seen only a few times in my very long life. How long have you lived? Mireille's skin shifted to a gentle silver. I am over 400 years old. G1. I have been working with Heartstone since before your species learned to leave your home planet. The weight of this statement settled over G1. He was talking to someone who had lived through centuries of history, someone who had mastered arts that his wife had somehow understood without training. When the Heartstone was stolen from our temple, Mireille continued, it was broken into 12 pieces. Over the years, we have found and recovered 8 of them. 3 remain missing. And mine is one of the missing pieces? Yes. But here is what makes your situation so extraordinary. The other pieces we recovered were damaged by improper handling. The thieves and the people who bought the stolen fragments did not understand how to work with Heartstone. They used power tools and harsh chemicals. They treated it like ordinary crystal. Mireille's skin began to glow more brightly. Those fragments lost most of their power. They can still be used in our ceremonies, but they are shadows of what they once were. But this piece? Your wife not only preserved its power, she enhanced it. The way she worked with it, the love and care she put into every cut. She awakened abilities in the stone that had been sleeping for centuries. G1 felt overwhelmed. I'm just a simple merchant, Mireille. I sell wooden bowls and cloth blankets. I don't know anything about sacred stones or ancient powers. Mireille reached across the table and gently touched his hand, the one wearing the ring. The moment her crystal skin made contact with the Heartstone, both of them gasped. For just a moment, G1 felt something incredible. It was like hearing Hana's voice again, seeing her smile, feeling her gentle touch on his cheek. But more than that, he felt her love for him, as strong and warm as it had been on the day she died. Mireille pulled her hand back, her eyes wide with wonder. Did you feel that? I felt, Hana, but how is that possible? Heartstone can preserve the essence of strong emotions. When your wife worked on this ring, when she poured her love into every careful cut, she was creating something that our greatest artisans have only dreamed of achieving. G1's eyes filled with tears. She's really still with me, isn't she? In a way that goes beyond anything we understand about life and death, yes. They sat in silence for several minutes, both lost in their own thoughts. Finally, Mireille spoke again. G1, I must ask you something important. My people have been searching for this fragment for 3 centuries. When word spreads about what your wife achieved, many Kalari will want to see this ring. Some may even demand that it be returned to our temple. And what do you think I should do? Mireille's skin cycled through several colors before settling on warm gold. I think your wife created something new. This is not just a piece of stolen Heartstone anymore. It is a bridge between her love for you and the ancient power of my people. She smiled. And for the first time since they had met, G1 saw genuine happiness in her expression. I think, G1, that your wife may have taught us something about Heartstone that we never knew before. Word traveled fast on Nexus Station. By the next morning, G1 found his small booth surrounded by curious aliens of every shape and size. News of the human who wore a perfectly cut piece of Kalari Heartstone had spread through the marketplace like wildfire. G1 sat behind his table, feeling uncomfortable with all the attention. Beside him stood Mireille, who had insisted on staying close to help explain the situation to the growing crowd. Is it true? Asked a tall alien with silver skin and 4 arms. Did a human really work with Heartstone using only hand tools? Before G1 could answer, Another voice spoke up from the crowd. Show us the ring! More voices joined in, all speaking different languages but all asking the same thing. Ji-won looked at Mireille nervously. It's all right, she said softly, her crystal skin glowing with calm blue light. They are not here to cause trouble. They are here because what your wife did is considered impossible. Ji-won slowly held up his hand, showing the simple silver ring with its 7-sided stone. The crowd pressed closer, and many aliens took out devices to record what they were seeing. A female Kalari pushed through the crowd, her crystal skin bright orange with excitement. She was much younger than Mireille, but she moved with the confidence of someone important. Honored Elder Mireille, she said, bowing deeply to the older woman. I am So Young, apprentice crystal worker from the Third Temple. I came as soon as I heard the news. Mireille nodded in greeting. So Young, I remember you from your early training days. You have traveled far. When the message reached our temple that you had found a perfectly worked piece of the lost Heartstone, the High Council sent me immediately. So Young's skin was cycling rapidly through colors of excitement and disbelief. They said it could not be true. And yet here it is, Mireille said, gesturing to Ji-won's ring. So Young stared at the ring with wide eyes. May I examine it more closely? Ji-won looked at Mireille, who nodded encouragingly. He held out his hand so Young could see the ring without him having to remove it. The young Kalari's skin went through a rapid series of color changes as she studied the stone. Purple for shock, gold for amazement, silver for confusion, then back to purple again. The 7-fold cut, she whispered. Perfect proportions. And the surface? It still holds active resonance. What does that mean? Asked someone from the crowd. So Young looked up, her skin glowing bright white with wonder. It means this stone is not just preserved. It is more powerful than it was before it was worked. A murmur went through the crowd. More aliens pressed forward to get a better look. That's impossible, said a voice from the back. Heartstone loses power when it's cut. Everyone knows that. Not when it's cut with pure intention and perfect love, Mireille said, her voice carrying clearly over the noise of the crowd. This human's wife achieved something our greatest masters have only dreamed of. An elderly alien with green scales and wise eyes pushed forward. I have studied crystal working for 60 years, he said. What you describe goes against everything we know about how these stones work. Then perhaps we don't know as much as we thought, Mireille replied. Ji-won felt overwhelmed by all the attention and technical discussion. Excuse me, he said, his voice quiet but somehow carrying to everyone around him. I think you're all missing the most important part of this story. The crowd grew quiet, waiting for him to continue. My wife didn't know anything about your temples or your sacred stones, Ji-won said. She didn't know the proper techniques or the right ways to cut crystal. She only knew that she loved me and wanted to create something beautiful. He looked down at the ring on his finger. She was sick when she worked on this. The doctors had told us she didn't have much time left. But she spent weeks carefully shaping this stone, not because she wanted to achieve some great technical feat, but because she wanted to leave me with something that would remind me every day how much she cared. Ji-won's voice grew stronger as he continued. She would sit in her workshop for hours, just holding the stone and thinking about our life together. She would tell me about the memories she was putting into each cut, each polish. So Young's skin had turned to soft gold. She spoke to the stone every day. She would tell it about the day we met, about our wedding, about the dreams we had for our future together. She said it was important that the stone understand the love it was meant to hold. Miri's own skin was glowing brightly now. And did she say anything else about the stone? About how it responded to her? Ji-won smiled, remembering. She said it was like the stone was happy to finally have a purpose. She claimed it had been waiting a long time for someone to understand what it was meant to become. The crowd was completely silent now, hanging on every word. On the day she finished the ring, Hana was very weak, Ji-won continued, but her eyes were bright with joy. She slipped it onto my finger and said, Now I'll never really leave you. Every time you look at this ring, you'll feel how much I love you. He paused, his voice catching slightly. And she was right. Even after she died, when I wear this ring, I can feel her presence. I can feel her love as strongly as if she were standing right beside me. An alien near the front of the crowd wiped tears from his large eyes. Your wife sounds like she was a very special person. She was just a human who loved someone very much, Ji-won said. I don't think she realized she was doing anything extraordinary. Mirai stepped forward, her skin cycling through warm colors. But that is exactly what made it extraordinary, she said to the crowd. For centuries, we Kalari have approached Hearthstone with reverence and technical knowledge. We study for decades to learn the proper methods. She gestured to Jiwan's ring. But this human woman approached it with something we had forgotten was important: pure, selfless love. She didn't care about technique or tradition. She only cared about creating something that would make her husband happy. So Jung spoke up, her voice filled with awe. The ancient texts speak of the first Kalari who worked with Hearthstone. They say the stones responded not to knowledge, but to the purity of the worker's heart. Perhaps, Mirai said, her skin glowing with gentle silver light, we have something to learn from this human's approach. The crowd began to disperse slowly, but many aliens lingered to ask Jiwan more questions about his wife and how she had worked with the stone. For the first time since arriving at Nexus Station, Jiwan felt like people were truly interested in the human way of doing things. As the day wore on, several aliens even bought items from his table, saying they wanted to own something made with the same kind of love and care that had created his ring. 3 weeks after the discovery, Jiwan found himself in a place he never could have imagined: the workshop of the most respected crystal artisan in the known galaxy. Mirai had convinced him to let her teach him about Hearthstone and the deeper meanings behind what his wife had achieved. The workshop was unlike anything on Earth. Walls lined with crystals of every color cast rainbow patterns across the room. Strange tools that hummed with energy sat next to simple hand files and polishing cloths. In the center of it all, Mirai worked at a table covered with fragments of crystal that seemed to glow with their own inner light. Your wife understood something that we had forgotten, Mirai said as she carefully shaped a small piece of blue crystal. Her movements were precise and practiced, but Jiwan could see the deep concentration required for every cut. What do you mean? Jiwan asked, watching her work. We Kalari have spent so many centuries studying the technical aspects of crystal work that we lost sight of the emotional connection, Mirai explained. We focused on perfect angles, exact measurements, proper tools. We made it a science. She paused in her work and looked at him. But Hearthstone responds to feelings, not formulas. Your wife knew this instinctively. Over the past weeks, word of Jiwan's ring had spread far beyond Nexus Station. Delegations from several Kalari worlds had arrived to examine the impossible artifact. Scientists, artisans, and religious leaders all wanted to understand how a human with no training had achieved what their greatest masters could not. The response had been mixed. Some Kalari were amazed and wanted to learn from Hana's approach. Others were insulted that a human had succeeded where they had failed. A few even demanded that the ring be returned to Kalari territory as stolen property. But Mirai had stood firmly by Jiwan's side through all of it. As the former High Keeper of Sacred Stones, her word carried enormous weight in Kalari society. The ring stays with Jiwan, she had announced at the formal hearing. His wife did not steal this stone. She rescued it from those who did not understand its true nature. More than that, she completed its journey. This Hearthstone has found its purpose. Now, in the quiet of her workshop, Mirai was teaching Jiwan techniques that had been passed down through generations of Kalari artisans. Try again, she said patiently, as Jiwan struggled to make a simple cut in a practice crystal. Don't think about the tool. Think about what you want the stone to become. Jiwan had been trying for hours, but every cut he made looked clumsy compared to Mirai's elegant work. I don't have Hana's gift, he said, frustrated. You have something else, Mirai replied, her skin glowing with warm encouragement. You have her memory and her love to guide you. As if responding to her words, the practice crystal in Jiwan's hands began to warm slightly. He looked down at it in surprise. Did you feel that? Mirai asked, her skin brightening with excitement. It felt familiar somehow. That's because part of Hana's essence lives in your ring, and that essence recognizes your touch. Try again, but this time think about her hands guiding yours. Jiwan closed his eyes and remembered watching Hana work. He remembered her gentle movements, her patient attention to detail, her habit of whispering to the materials as if they were old friends. When he opened his eyes and touched his tool to the crystal, something was different. His hand moved more smoothly, more surely. The cut he made was clean and purposeful. Mirai's skin erupted in brilliant gold light. There, you felt it, didn't you? Jiwan nodded, amazed. It was like she was with me. In a way, she always will be. That ring connects you to her memory and her skills. As the days passed, more visitors came to observe Jiwon's progress. Word had spread that he was learning Kalari crystal techniques with unprecedented speed. Young Kalari artisans arrived to watch and learn, hoping to understand how human emotional connection could enhance their own work. So-young had become a regular visitor, often bringing other apprentices with her. "Master Mirai," she said one afternoon, "the High Council has made a decision about the human techniques." "And?" Mirai asked, not looking up from her work. "They want to establish an exchange program. Kalari artisans would come to Earth to study human craftsmanship, and humans would be invited to our workshops to learn crystal work." Jiwon looked up from the small pendant he was working on. "Really? They want to learn from us?" "Your wife's achievement has changed how we think about our art," So-young explained, her skin glowing with enthusiasm. "We realize now that technical perfection without emotional connection creates beautiful but lifeless work." Mirai smiled, her ancient features brightening with joy. "This is what I had hoped for. Your wife has built a bridge between our peoples, Jiwon." In the months that followed, Jiwon found his life transformed. He was no longer just a simple merchant selling earthcrafts. He had become something entirely new, a teacher and student of interspecies artisanship. His small booth in the marketplace had been replaced by a proper workshop, where humans and Kalari worked side by side. Young people from both species came to learn not just techniques, but how to put their hearts into their work. The simple wooden bowls and cloth blankets that he had once sold were now displayed alongside crystal sculptures and metalwork that seemed to glow with inner life. Each piece was created through the collaboration of human intuition and alien knowledge. But the most important change was in Jiwon himself. The grief that had weighed on him since Hana's death had transformed into something else. He could feel her presence not just in his ring, but in everything he created with his hands. One evening, as he worked late in his new workshop, Miri joined him at his bench. "Do you ever regret it?" she asked. "Having your quiet life change so dramatically?" Jiwon looked at the ring on his finger, then at the half-finished crystal sculpture before him. The piece was a collaboration. He had provided the emotional design while a young Kalari artist had contributed the technical skill. Together they were creating something neither could have achieved alone. "Hana always said that love was meant to be shared, not hoarded," he said finally. "I think she would be happy to know that her love for me has become something that brings different peoples together." Mirai's skin glowed with the warm silver that Jiwon had learned meant deep contentment. "Your wife gave you more than a ring, Jiwon. She gave you a way to keep her memory alive by helping others understand the power of creating with love." Jiwon smiled and returned to his work, his hands moving with the confidence that came from knowing that somewhere, somehow, Hana was still guiding them. The simple human merchant had become something he never expected, a bridge between worlds, teaching the galaxy that the most powerful tools for creation were not advanced technology or ancient wisdom, but simply an open heart and the willingness to put love into every careful, patient cut.